Chapter 4 Hidey Hole. In the darkness, Game Knight dug, breaking blocks of dirt with his shovel, the wooden blade easily piercing the earthen cubes while dust filled the chamber. Coughing, he continued to dig, knowing that he had to find resources stone, coal, and iron soon, or he wouldn't survive long. Driving his shovel harder, he continued to excavate, opening up his little earthen home even more, the darkness wrapping around him like a cloak, the unknown in the shadows stabbing his soul with icicles of fear. Doing things in total darkness was never a good idea in Minecraft. Suddenly his progress was slowed. He'd hit stone. Switching to his pick, he continued to dig, breaking one stone block, then another and another. Hammering through the rock, Game Knight collected 8 more blocks until his wooden pick gave out, bursting into a shower of splinters. Switching to his second pick, he kept digging, breaking 2 more blocks of stone. Then, after breaking a third, illumination suddenly filled his hidey hole, fear filling his mind. Light from something underground was never a good thing. Stopping, he moved slowly away from the shining hole, backing into the shadows that were no longer completely dark, and drew his sword. He might have punched through to a cavern or an abandoned mine. Maybe it was a dungeon. No, none this close to the surface. Well, it didn't matter what it was. He had to investigate, and he had to be ready. Moving slowly towards the light, Game Knight 999 peered through the opening, ready to dart back into the shadows of his hidey hole, out of reach of any monsters. He could see a small cave, no more than 3 blocks wide by 4 deep, the cramped space completely lit. At the back of the cave was a small pool of lava, 2 blocks wide, the bubbling molten stone glowing warm orange. This was the source of light, not torches from a mine or dungeon, but lava, precious and dangerous lava. Looking into the corners, he couldn't see any monsters within the cave. The stone chamber was silent. Drawing his pick again, he excavated the opening, giving him full access. Now his hidey hole was fully lit, and he could see the interior. There was nothing of value here. No coal, no iron. He'd have to tunnel much deeper than this. But there was something he needed: stone. Lots of stone. Moving back to his crafting bench, Game Knight crafted stone tools: a sword, a shovel, and 3 picks. He'd need those to find iron. With his stone tools in his inventory, he turned back and faced the pool of lava, curious why it would be here, but was certainly glad for the light. Turning to the right, he started digging down, making steps that descended into the flesh of this Minecraft world, looking for iron. He'd need better weapons and armor if he was going to survive long enough to figure out what was going on. I wonder how long I'm going to be trapped inside this game, Game Knight said to no one, just thinking out loud. Maybe at dawn I'll get kicked from the server for some reason. He didn't really believe that, but he could hope. As he dug, he could feel himself getting hungrier, his stomach now grumbling, but feeling emptier somehow, his hunger level lowering. He needed food soon or he'd start losing HP. Remembering what that felt like with the spider, he knew it was something he definitely wanted to avoid. But first came the iron. Continuing to dig, he tore at the stone in front of him with reckless abandon, his pick a blur as he deepened the stairway that plunged down into the unknown depths. As he got into a rhythm, dig, remove blocks, a song seemed to spring into his mind, something from a Minecraft video he couldn't quite remember. I'm a dwarf and I'm digging a hole, diggy 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 hole, diggy diggy hole. He tried to shake the song from his head, but it stayed there, repeating itself over and over again. Humming along with the melody, he continued to dig, driving his pick harder and harder. Without any torches, his tunnel quickly grew dark. Eventually he'd have to stop, the threat of falling into a hole or chamber becoming too great. Slowing his pace, he dug carefully, watching that the newly freed blocks were still floating in front of him and not falling down into some dark hole as he moved forwards. Then suddenly he was through to another chamber. Light filtered into his stairway and lit the dark recesses of his tunnel with precious illumination, the sound of falling water filling the air. Drawing his new stone sword, Game Knight moved cautiously into the cavern. He could see water rushing into a pool at one end, the waterfall streaming through a large jagged hole in the cavern ceiling. Stepping into the space, he scanned the area, looking for threats. No zombies or skeletons, for now. On one wall, he could see coal, the dark circles standing out against the sides of the grey blocks. There were at least 9 blocks of the precious resource visible, likely more hiding behind. Turning to the left, a small group of iron blocks caught his attention. Iron! He needed that, lots of that. Iron meant armor and better weapons, but first the coal. Scanning the chamber again for threats, he quickly mined the coal, his stone pick biting hungrily through the dark mineral. The small black lumps piled up at his feet and they were sucked into his inventory somehow. The iron was more stubborn, of course, the yellow-grey stone not wanting to give up its precious resource so easily. This was to be expected. Looking about the cavern, he saw 3 small glowing balls of light flowing off the ground near the pool at the waterfall's feet, a spool of spider's web hovering nearby. Moving to the water, he stood near the glowing balls of XP. When he was close enough, the spears seemed to move on their own, somehow growing invisible legs and rushing towards him, then disappeared, making him feel a little stronger, but still hungry. Looking up at where the water entered the cavern, Game Knight could see the blue sky. Nighttime was over. That meant it was safe to go outside. Sprinting back to the tunnel he just dug, he ran up the steps, and then sealed the tunnel with blocks of dirt. He didn't want any zombies coming in through the back door when he was gone. Moving to his crafting bench, Game Knight made a furnace and placed it next to the bench, then placed some of the tiny clumps of coal in the furnace, orange flames appearing at the base, licking up the sides, and adding more light to his hidey hole. He then placed the blocks of iron ore into the furnace. As he waited, Game Knight crafted torches, using enough of the coal for 24 burning sticks in total. It would have to be enough for now. He didn't want to use up all his coal. Going back to the furnace, he found that the iron ore was done, the blocky stone now converted into dull grey ingots. Using the newly smelted metal, Game Knight crafted himself a new iron sword. Now he was ready to go outside. Breaking down the blocks of dirt that he had used to seal himself in, Game Knight moved out of his hidey hole and started to hunt. Running to the top of the nearby hill, he surveyed the area. Sheep were of course nearby. Annoying sheep. Why couldn't he eat sheep? He'd never understood that. Ignoring the fluffy creatures, he scanned his surroundings. Rolling hills stretched out in all directions with a bright green grass gently swaying in the breeze. Colourful flowers sprinkled across its surface. Clusters of trees dotted the landscape, oaks and birches standing tall like sentinels watching over the inhabitants. The snow-capped spruces in the distance extended upward and crowded together in the taiga biome, their dark green branches sharply contrasting the white frosting on their limbs. And then Game Knight found what he was looking for: cows. They were meandering about on the grassy plains, their spotted black and white fur blending in with the shadows, making them difficult to see at first. But once he spotted them, they were easy to find. Intermixed with the herd was a cluster of pigs, the little pink animals looking like candy decorations on the landscape. This was exactly what he needed right now. Running down the hill, Game Knight 999 headed toward the cattle, iron sword drawn. Driven by his hunger, he crossed the grassy plains in an instant. As he neared, a curious pig waddled a bit closer. "Here, piggy, piggy," he said to the animal, approaching slowly. When he was close enough, Game Knight struck hard and fast, ready for the desperate dash the animal would make. Slash! Squeal, squeal! Run, run, run! Slash, slash! Squeal! Pork chops! He'd killed the pig and now had pork, but he couldn't believe how terrible it had sounded. Pigs always squealed when you hit them, but hearing it from the computer was completely different than standing right in front of them. The sound the pig had made was one of terrible anguish and pain, its screams filled with fear and knowing that his life was about to end. It was horrible. What would happen when it was his turn? Would he feel the same terrible anguish as the pig? Would he die here in Minecraft and just reappear in his basement? Or would he respawn? Or would he really die? A chill ran down his spine, the uncertainty of death wrapping its cold skeletal hands around his soul. Suddenly, Game Knight was scared as these thoughts floated through his mind. Scanning his surroundings, he quickly looked for threats, the thought of suffering the same fate as that innocent pig driving his caution and his fear. Then hunger bubbled within him. He had to eat. Continuing on, Game Knight looked for more animals. In the old days, well, yesterday, when he wasn't trapped within Minecraft, he used to kill pigs just for fun. He hadn't really cared before if the pigs actually felt anything. It was just a game. But he didn't feel like just a game anymore. It felt like something more real. His hunger dropped another notch. He had to find more food, no matter how terrible it sounded. Sprinting forward, he found cattle lazily walking across the grassy plains, doing whatever cows do, their mooing filling the air. Striking out at them, first one, then another, and another, Game Knight collected beef, their terrible screams filling his soul with guilt. After the third cow, he spun around and headed back to his hidey hole. On the way, he came across two chickens that looked like they were hiding behind a copse of trees, and killed them as well. He couldn't remember who used to call them spy chickens. Someone on YouTube? Maybe Paul Sear Sr.? He wasn't sure, but found it momentarily amusing for some reason. That was until the chickens started to scream out in pain as his iron sword clove them in two. What a terrible sound. Reaching his hidey hole, Game Knight stopped to plant a couple of torches near its opening. It wasn't a good idea to lose the location of your home when out foraging. He'd need to build a tall tower so that he could see it from a distance, but that would be done later. Right now, he needed to eat. Jumping into his hidey hole, he sealed himself in with dirt again. Moving to his furnace, he put all his beef in and let it cook. His hunger dropped another notch. He could feel it, the emptiness within growing, threatening to start taking HP. It wasn't clear how many hunger points he had left. Without a screen, it was difficult to judge, but he knew he was getting hungrier, the emptiness in his stomach starting to hurt. As soon as the first steak was done, he gobbled it down and then ate the next one just as quickly. The meat filled Game Knight with strength, driving the food from his body and adding it to his HP. It was funny. He could feel the little bars of health refilling, even though he couldn't see them. Feeling fully healthy, Game Knight crafted another stone pick and started to look for iron ore again. Digging through the dirt that he'd used to seal up his mine shaft, he headed down the stairway and into the cavern below. Once again, he put a torch over his tunnel, then started to move into the dark recesses of the cavern, staying to the right side. He placed torches so that he could see the walls, looking for the all-important coal and iron. Moving deeper into the cavern, he searched the walls while also continually scanning the space for monsters, planting torches as he went. Slow and cautious was the way to go when exploring a new cave or cavern. At these depths, it wouldn't matter if it was day or not, the monsters would be here, waiting. Moving further into the passageway, he found a few more blocks of both iron ore and coal, but not in any significant numbers. He had to go deeper. Gripping his sword firmly in his hand, Game Knight moved cautiously forward, trying to stay in the circle of light from the last torch, then chancing a little darkness before planting the next, the new circle of light always making him feel a little safer. The cavern had an uneven floor, made mostly of dirt and stone, with the occasional patches of gravel intermixed. At times the floor sloped downward, but then quickly rose up again as the tunnel took its meandering path into the flesh of this world. It was clear that this was a naturally recurving cavern, with few flat surfaces, the walls undulating with the floor in a random manner. But as he explored, the ceiling and walls gradually started to close in, slowly changing the large cavern into a tunnel just floor box tall. This was better. His torch could illuminate both walls. He found 2 more blocks of iron and dug them up with his stone pick. Snap! The stone tool broke, its strength finally used up. Pulling out his second pick, he continued down the tunnel. It started to slope downward even more now, and this worried him. Down was where the monsters lived. Pulling out his sword, he continued, stopping to dig up the occasional iron or coal block. Moving cautiously through the shadowy tunnel, Game Knight could hear creatures in the distance, a moaning that sounded like a sorrowful hatred for all living things. Zombies. Planting the torches closer together, he continued on, his sword held at the ready, fear trickling down his spine. He could still remember what it felt like to get hit by the spider, the pain rocketing through his body. Keeping his ears trained for their sounds, he continued on. Finding a huge patch of iron around the next bend, Game Knight excitedly pulled out his pick and started digging. 1 block came free, then another, and then 2 more. Snap! The pick gave the last measure of its life, then disappeared with a pop. Pulling out his last pickaxe, he continued mining, hammering at the yellow speckled ore with all his might. This vein of iron ore might give him enough metal to craft that which he desperately needed if he were to survive in this world. Is this even real? He thought. It certainly felt real when that spider slashed at him, the pain still vivid and real in his memory. As he dug, he focused on clearing all the iron, not wanting to miss a single block. Chunks of stone came free with the iron as he looked for the boundary of the vein, many of the blocks falling to the ground and just floating there, bobbing up and down as if suspended on some unseen ocean. As he dug, Game Knight found a cluster of coal adjacent to the iron. Perfect! Digging up the rest of the iron, he then focused his attention on the coal, freeing the dark stone quickly, leaving small black piles at his feet. As he moved to collect the coal, sorrowful wails filled the air, like the moaning cries of a creature in complete despair. There was no hope or life. There was no hope or love of life within that terrible voice, just an overwhelming sadness for its own existence, which had turned so sour that the creature now hated all living things. A zombie was near. Spinning around, Game Knight felt the sharp sting of the zombie's strike. The rotten, decaying monster reached out with its sickly green arms and struck at his shoulder, landing a glancing blow that didn't do much damage, but still hurt. He looked at the zombie's outstretched arms, expecting to see the normally blunt, ineffective appendages, but instead he noticed 5 sharp claws at the end of each hand. Their razor-sharp tips gleaming in the torchlight, reaching out to him. Drawing his sword, Game Knight started to hack away at the monster, driving him backward and out of arm's reach, but as he swung, another zombie came into the battle. This new monster slashed at his exposed flank, causing pain to erupt throughout his body. More angry moans started floating up from deeper within the tunnel, echoing off the walls, making it difficult to tell their numbers. These 2 were only the scouts. The sounds of battle were drawing the rest of the mob near. He couldn't stay here long. It sounded as if there were numerous hungry monsters on their way, and Game Knight 999 was on their dinner menu. Focusing on just one of the zombies, Game Knight slashed and slashed away at it, ignoring the pain caused by its companion. In a pop of glowing XP balls, the zombie disappeared, a confused look on its face when it realized it was about to die. Game Knight felt no remorse. Now he focused on the remaining monster, his iron sword driving the monster back. So you want some? Game Knight yelled at the monstrosity. Come on, let's dance. He hacked at his enemy faster and faster, trying to do more damage, the heat of battle masking the pain from his injuries. The zombie flashed red. Yeah, how's that feel? Slashing at his head, there was another flash of red, and then another. The zombie fought back, its sharp claws streaking through the air, but just missing Game Knight as he leapt back, careful to stay out of reach. He did not want to feel those terrible claws again. Swinging his sword, he drove the creature backwards, not giving it time to strike back, and then pop! More glowing balls of XP littered the ground. He moved quickly to collect his prize, then ran back toward the cavern opening, yearning for the safety of his hidey hole. This time, keeping his torches on his left, he easily followed his trail of breadcrumbs back to the large cavern, the zombies staying in the shadowy depths of the tunnel, doing whatever zombies do in the dark. No more monsters came out to challenge him. He was grateful for their cowardice because his left arm throbbed with pain, his health feeling slightly depleted. Clearly he'd taken some damage in that battle, adding urgency to his need for armor. He could hear the waterfall up ahead as he ascended, the large cavern that was now bathed in shadow except for his torches, their circles of light pushing back the darkness in spots. It was night, monster hour. Running to the far wall, he ran up the stairway marked with a single torch. Once at the top, he sealed the tunnel with blocks of stone and then breathed a sigh of relief. He was safe in his hole. Pulling out his last piece of beef, he ate it quickly, the nourishment adding to his HP. The pain from the zombie attack subsided a bit, but the fear still echoed with every heartbeat. He needed information, needed to understand what was happening. What was this world all about? It couldn't be a dream. The pain was too vivid, too real. The feeling of terror when facing attacking monsters was too overwhelming. Not like a nightmare, but like something more. The only place he might learn something was the village he'd seen, but in order to get there he'd have to cross a lot of open land, and it was far away. He might not make it before sundown, and that meant monsters, lots of them. The last two zombies had done little damage, but they'd still done some. What would it be like if he had to face 6 of them, and add a few spiders in there as well, and creepers? Creepers. The thought of facing those mottled green walking bombs made Game Knight shiver with fear, but he knew he'd have to confront them eventually. There would certainly be more mobs converging on the village, with creepers at the front lines, especially when night fell. He needed to make iron armor, or he'd never survive the journey. Moving to the furnace, he put all of his iron inside, 31 in total, and 1 stack of coal underneath. As the iron ore cooked in the furnace, Game Knight made some more torches. He then used his last stone pick and enlarged his hidey hole, removing blocks of stone and dirt, raising the ceiling and extending the walls. He then jumped up and placed a block of dirt directly beneath him, then repeated the process so that he was standing on 2 blocks. Facing the exterior wall, Game Knight dug horizontally, making a hole that went all the way through the wall, but was above head height. This would allow sunlight into his cave, but would not let any skeletons shoot arrows at him. This way he'd know if it was light outside without digging up out of his dirt door. It was still dark, the clicking of spiders, moans of zombies, and boing boings of slimes trickling their way into his hole, the sounds making his spine tingle a little, maybe a lot, with fear. Moving back to the furnace, he found 9 iron ingots. Taking them all, he moved to the crafting bench. Placing 8 pieces in the correct pattern, Game Knight made a chest plate. Putting it on, he went back to the furnace. 4 more pieces were ready. Taking those and the one he already had, he was able to make an iron helmet. The armor seemed to drive a little bit of the fear away, making him feel safer and stronger, more like Game Knight 999. I wish I could see what I look like, he said aloud to no one. He had no idea what skin he was using, or even what the armor might look like in this high-resolution world of Minecraft. Turning back to the furnace, he found 10 more pieces of iron. Not quite enough. Using 7 of the ingots, he made a pair of iron leggings and put them on, flexing his legs. The metal pants felt unexpectedly flexible, not weighing him down at all. Interesting. Then going back to the furnace, he grabbed 4 more ingots and crafted iron boots. Now he had a full set of armor. This changed everything. Drawing his sword, he swung it at imaginary attackers, feeling the weight of the armor on his body, the metal skin feeling tough and resilient, yet at the same time lightweight and completely flexible. Now he was ready to show this server who Game Knight 999 really was. Waiting for the remaining pieces to smelt into ingots, Game Knight wondered how this place worked. Was he running on his father's computer, or on a server somewhere? What would happen if their computer lost power or froze up? Those thoughts made a shiver run down his spine, goosebumps rippling against the cold iron. Game Knight liked to be in control, and this experience on the server was the opposite of that. At school, he was never in control, always hiding in the shadows from the bullies. He was neither the biggest boy in his grade, nor the most athletic, nor the smartest. He was just an average kid who wanted to get by without too much hassle, tried to stay invisible. That was his goal at school. But in Minecraft, that was all different. In Minecraft, he was in control. He ruled the other players, griefing them whenever he felt like it, trolling them just for fun. He'd do this game better than anyone. Well, maybe except for Notch, Minecraft's creator. With the latest mods and the most recent hacks, he could do whatever he wanted, and it didn't matter how big he was or how fast he was. Or, in Minecraft, Game Knight 999 was in control, until now, and this did not make him happy. Turning back to the furnace, he took out the remaining ingots of iron and crafted an iron pickaxe, iron axe, and a shovel. Now he had a full set of tools. Putting the rest of the pork and chicken into the furnace, he cooked them quickly and put the food in his inventory. He'd need it for when he left his hidey hole. Pulling out his new shiny pick, he hacked away at his furnace and broke it up, then did the same with the crafting bench, putting the essential tools into his inventory as well. Now he was ready. Placing a block of dirt next to his stack of 2 stone horizontal blocks, he stepped up and looked through the hole he'd just dug. He could see that the sun had risen. It was morning, and the sun's square yellow face was now visible. It was time. Stepping down, he moved to the dirt blocks that enclosed his cave and dug them up with his shovel. They fell away easily. Stepping outside, he sealed his hidey hole back up again. He'd learned long ago to never put a door in your hidey hole, because griefers could find it and steal everything you had hidden there, as well as destroy your hideout. He knew that because he'd done it many times to those pathetic and unwary players. Looking to the east, he could see that the sun had fully risen. There was still time. Before setting out for the village, Game Knight scaled the small mountain that loomed over his hideout. Leaping quickly up the steep slope, he chose a path where he could ascend one block at a time. Backtracking a few times to find a jumpable path, Game Knight eventually made it to the top. The view was spectacular. The natural landscape of Minecraft now lay before him like a complex quilt of different biomes, their blocky nature evident up close but appearing as smooth features in the distance. Looking up, he could feel the sun travelling on its relentless course toward the horizon. Night would come sooner than he wanted. He had to hurry. Using the dirt blocks that were collected when he'd excavated his hidey hole, Game Knight started to build a tower. Not an elaborate structure, just one block on top of another block going straight up in the sky. After about 10 blocks, he started placing torches on the side of the blocks, leaning out far enough to see the vertical faces. Building another 5 blocks, he did the same, placing torches on all 4 sides of the dirt tower. Lastly, he jumped up and placed a torch on the very top of the structure. He'd learned long ago that it was easy to get lost in Minecraft, and a lit tower was always helpful in finding your way back home. Who knows if he'd actually be coming back? Satisfied that the tower will be visible from a distance, Game Knight jumped off. If he were to fall straight onto the ground, he'd likely take damage, but the tower had been placed strategically next to the source of the waterfall, a bubbling pool of water that flowed onto the edge of the outcropping, falling some 20 or 30 blocks to the ground below. With careful aim, Game Knight landed in that bubbling pool, taking no damage. Being in a hurry, he chose to ride the water down to the ground rather than retracing his steps up to the top of the mountain. Leaping into the flow of water, he slowly floated to the base of the cliff, the watery flow momentarily robbing him of air. As he fell, Game Knight watched the ground slowly rise up to meet him, the watery ride gentle and smooth. Pushing his way out of the water flows so as to avoid being pulled into the underground cavern below, he gracefully landed next to the pool and hit the ground running. Moving to the north, Game Knight sprinted for the break in the hills that led out of the small basin at the foot of the mighty waterfall. Turning, he looked up. The pillar of dirt shone bright at the top of the mountain, hopefully visible from a great distance. It might attract griefers, but they'd never find his hidey hole unless they had an X-ray mod. And besides, he had all the important things with him: food, weapons, and tools. The rest they could have if it came to that. Turning back to the north, Game Knight 999 faced his destination, the distant village. Ahead of him stood the strange monster-like mountain, its spiky outcropping looking like the ravenous mouth of some great beast. He had to run past this earthy brute to get to the village. It made him shudder. That giant fanged opening seemed to be waiting for him to come near and make a mistake, an error that would cost him pain and death. An icy hand of fear settled its clammy grip on his spine, making him shudder again. He could see a few spiders in the distance and the occasional creeper. Speed and stealth were critical now, or he'd never get to the village. Worse yet, he might never make it at all. He wished he had Shawnee, his Minecraft one, with him. Shawnee was maybe his only friend. They'd gone on many adventures before, fought many battles side by side. It wasn't very common for Game Knight to say that he needed someone. He was a lone wolf by nature, but today, right now, he desperately needed someone. Needed his friend. But wishes never got you anything, just false hope. Stuffing his fear down deep within his soul, he started to sprint toward the village, anxiety and dread tickling the edges of his mind. Monsters beware, he said, holding his sword up high, his body wrapped in life-preserving iron. Game Knight 999 is here. And onward he ran, toward the village, towards his fate. Geez, that was a long chapter. I hope you enjoyed it anyway.